Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? Welcome back to Alps Panorama at the Northern Sea here in Farming Simulator 19. It's called Dark Souls for a reason. Okay? It's dark, it's dangerous, and it makes grown men cry. So, it makes everybody cry, right? If you play Dark Souls, you're going to weep like a small child who has just had their sweets taken away. And you will do it frequently and often. I'm just warning you. That's what Dark Souls is, and that's what Courseplay is. Courseplay is exactly the same. The person who has created Courseplay plays Dark Souls, I guarantee it. The person who created Courseplay thought, how can we bring Dark Souls to Farming Simulator? And that's what they've done. They've brought Dark Souls to Farming Simulator. So I'm going to take a stand until Dark Souls is no longer Dark Souls in Farming Simulator. Yes, I'm taking my stand against it. I think it's shocking, and I don't think it should be allowed. Right, let me just stop right there. Let's stop ranting now. I'm going to take this bad boy right here, and I'm going to drive back over to the shop. Because what we're going to do is we're going to run a little test. We're going to go and pick up the Quadrant Baler from the new DLC, and we're going to see what the pickup width is on that one compared to the standard one that we've been using over there. I really hope that this baler works and does what it's supposed to do, and it's got a decent pickup on it. That's what I'm really wanting, is a decent pickup. 153,000. See, I don't know what it is about these balers that is supposed to justify the... Oh, hang on, no. If I just lease it... Oh, no. We need to buy it, don't we? We buy it, and then we get a full refund if we only use it for a very, very short space of time. And all I'm really wanting to do is test the pickup width. Right, the other baler is 100,000. This one is 150,000. What is the difference between the two balers? What is it about this baler in-game that is going to give us an extra 50 grand's worth of anything whatsoever? Actually, let's just double check. We'll run a couple of comparisons on what we've got. So this one here requires 140 horsepower, and it does 20 kilometers in the field. And then this one is 20 kilometers, requires more horsepower. That's it. That's all you've got. It does exactly the same. It doesn't do anything different whatsoever. Just costs more. There's nothing on it to justify that extra bit. I'm going to change the variable bale capacity. I'm going to switch that one up to 8,000, which we said that we would be doing. So we've got that on there. So I'm a little bit disappointed about that bit. Yeah, I am cutting across the field. I'm a bit disappointed by the fact that there's nothing on here to justify that extra $50,000, 50,000 euros, whatever one you want to look at. It does seem a bit of a shame. So let's have a look. Have they done the pickup width right on this? So we'll unfold the baler here. I mean, I do love the look of the machine overall. It does look absolutely beautiful. It is really well done. The pickup on here as well. We'll lower that one down. Look at that. It's a fantastic pickup. The in-feed and everything on there. That is absolutely gorgeous. But what is the actual pickup width? You've got to be kidding me. That pickup width is narrower than any of the mods that we tried. That doesn't work. Look at it. That's it right there. That is, quite frankly, ridiculous. That is way too narrow. I am bitterly disappointed with that. I am really genuinely gutted. I thought that maybe this would be a Claas Quadrant baler that we could use. I'm just going to dump that one there a second, and I'm going to go and get our standard baler, and I'm going to do exactly the same test. I'm just going to drive in. I'm going to do a little tiny bit right next to it, and we will be able to compare the two widths on the pickup reel. I am so disappointed with that. I really am. I'm genuinely gutted. I thought that maybe, just maybe, that pickup width would be right, but it's not. And the only way to get round that is to go and manually alter it myself, which I'm not sure I'm able to do. I could try, but I don't think I've got the know-how. So we're back, stuck using the Krone again. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this baler, don't get me wrong. There's no problems with it at all. It's just that I wanted to be able to use the Claas one. I wanted to be able to use that shiny one over there just because it looks really cool and it's Claas. It's got the Claas name on the side, and it's a brand that I particularly like. Just unfold you like that, and we'll come in here. We will lower that one down. See the pickup, the whole pickup selection bit on there. It's altogether different. And look. See, look at that. Look at the difference between the two. This is utterly ridiculous. That right there, that's not even attempting to get wide enough on it. What's that? Seriously, what's wrong with it? And then this one over here, this is perfect. That's what you need. So what is going on with this? I am gutted. Absolutely gutted. And I'll try it a little bit more. Maybe maybe we did something wrong with that. I'll go over here and I'll grab it, and we'll just try going around the field a little bit, but I can't see that's going to do anything at all. I suspect that it's just going to be complete and total rubbish. We're going to try and go around the field. Look, I'm going to go up the middle of this like that. I'm leaving a strip. Right, I'm already leaving a strip. It should be picking up this. That's just ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm just going to go forward. I'm going to finish making this bale. There we go. That'll do. We're done. We're done with this. This one is useless. Completely and utterly useless. I'm bitterly disappointed in that. I mean, maybe I can try and get it wider, because, I mean, overall, this baler looks so cool. It really does. But I'm absolutely gutted that they have not done it how I was hoping they would. And, you know, with this one, they got it right on this one. Why couldn't they just do the same on the next one? Seriously, they got it absolutely spot on with this one. And then the next one they've gone and actually put the pickup width. And they haven't even done it out to the edge of the pickup. They've done it in here somewhere, right? There was that much that wasn't being picked up, so I am really disappointed with that. Right, overall, the whole Claas DLC has been absolutely brilliant, and I've been really seriously impressed with it. But that one bit right there, I am bitterly disappointed with that. There's one little bit right there that has just really... I genuinely feel let down. I really do. I was hoping that maybe, just maybe, they would do the same as they've done with that one, and they would have it as a decent pickup width, but they haven't. I'm going to sell that one. I will have a look, but with the DLCs, it's much harder to get to the files and actually make any changes on anything, so I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to alter that pickup width. I mean, I will try, because I would dearly love to be able to have it working properly. And I'll also see if I can find out if there's any plan. I guess it just sort of look at the forums or something like that, but yeah, the working width of that baler is a serious disappointment. I mean, look at this. It's picking up all the grass. This is doing exactly what we want it to do. That's all we need. Just to come along like this and pick up the hay. There. What's wrong with that? Why can't... Is this too much to ask? Is this, in a game like Farming Simulator, is it too much to ask to have a baler that actually is able to pick up your swath of hay, or your swath of grass, or your swath of straw? Is that too much? Am I really being unreasonable in asking for something like that? I get the feeling maybe I am, because this is literally the only baler that I have yet found that will do that. Nobody seems to think that it's a good idea to have a baler that will pick up the stuff you want it to pick up. A lot of different baler mods out there. Every single one of them has the same fault. It won't pick up the stuff on the floor. Am I being unreasonable? Head into the comment section and let me know today if you think that Frithgar is being entirely too unreasonable and he should stop whining about it and just get on and play the game. Or do I have a valid point? You know, is this something that you two also agree with? I know I have spoken about this before and I have asked for comments, but I'm asking again because I'm so disappointed with that little result that we just got right there. Should we expect our balers to be able to pick up the stuff on the ground? Is this a reasonable thing? Or do you think that I am actually being unreasonable and I'm using a rake that is too big for the conditions that we're using it in? You know, I got a really thick crop on the ground, so I shouldn't be raking up the material into such a high swath. And that is why the baler, there's not a problem with the baler. That in fact that I'm making the swath too big. And so it's me. I'm using the wrong rake for the conditions that we have, and I should be using a smaller rake, therefore leaving a smaller swath on the ground. My counter-argument to that little bit is that the smaller swath doesn't necessarily leave a narrower track on the ground. It still leaves a fairly wide swath on the ground. It just doesn't heap it up quite so much in the middle. That's my counter-argument to that. I mean, yeah, it does generally leave it smaller, but when you're going around corners and stuff, it still leaves it out quite wide. Even though it's not piled up quite so high. So, yeah, I mean, I do sort of see that argument, but at the same time, I'm sort of saying, well, maybe not entirely. Maybe there is, you know, one or the other. Let's see. Anyway, I have now done one field. Courseplay didn't work, so we're going to have to manually go over and do this next field as well. If I am able to hack the system and I can make a slight alteration to that quadrant baler, I don't think I will be able to, but I do have another mod that I could do something to. I'm wondering if I should make a baler go a little bit faster. We got 20 kph at the moment. I'm wondering if we should make a baler go at, say, 25 or something like that. Just get it ticking along the ground a little bit faster. You don't want it to go ridiculously fast, but there are definitely balers that you can move a bit faster than this with. Although these days, what a lot of people do is they use a wider rake. They make a bigger windrow. Oh, a bit like this one right here. So this is sort of running counter to the argument that we're using too big a rake. Because the balers are designed to take more material. So you use a bigger rake, pile up more material, and then the baler can stuff it all in the front. And a nice big swath like this is actually, or at least it used to. To say that it does now, but at least it used to. When I used to do baling with balers that are 15, nearly 20 years older than they are right now, the thicker and bigger the swath that you could stuff into the front of the baler, the better quality the bales. Right? If you had a smaller swath on the ground, then you struggled a little bit more to make really good quality bales, and you had to work a little bit harder to make sure that the bales were a bit better. I have spoken before about how you had to sort of weave up and down the roads a little bit in order to really make the thing come out properly, but generally speaking, just if it was thinner on the ground, even if it was spread nice and wide, you'd still make a poorer bale. This right here, what we're picking up, we're going around these corners, that quadrant baler would not be able to come up this row and pick up all of this. And this, again, this is down to the game. Because of the angle that we're travelling along the field, if you look down there, because of that angle we're travelling along the field, the way that it sort of leaves the swath on the ground, going along a diagonal as it travels up the field, it leaves it always leaves it wider than it does if we're going along like this. It leaves it, that's the narrowest sort of swath that you can get. But then as soon as you switch round and you start moving on a diagonal, it spreads it out naturally a bit wider, and if you've got a narrow pickup on your baler, it's going to leave that behind. It's not actually going to pick that up at all, is it? And then you've got this same issue with not being able to pick anything up, and that's not something that we want. Anyway, we'll worry about that another time. For now, we've got a baler that does do the job that we want it to do. And maybe at some point I will get a tweaked baler so that we can run a little bit faster as well, which could be an interesting thing to do. What else was I going to do? Alright, we got it. Once these bales are done, we gather them all up, we can stuff them in the shed, then that bit's done. We still got to wait for the silage, so we're not going to be ready for making silage just yet. That's going to be... They're still on our... No, not making silage. We're not ready for making the TMR just yet. We can make TMR without having straw. We don't have to wait for the straw to be available to do that bit. So we've got that bit still to come. That's in the offing. Let me grab all of that lot there. There we go. And then... Well, I guess once we've gathered everything up, the next big job that we're going to have is... See, right here, we've got these massive, great big heaps of stuff that we're trying to go through, and the baler will get most of it, but you're getting to the point where the heaps of material that we're trying to gather up are a little bit too big, right? It's got to the point where it would be a little bit daft if the baler was able to go and gather all of that up, and the baler isn't. The baler does leave some bits behind. It seems to be the optimal width, this one here. So, again, why couldn't the Claas one be like this? Still disappointed. Still hashtag disappointed with that Claas baler. So, yeah, we've got harvest coming up fairly soon. We've got our baler, our combine. The combine is ready and waiting, and I'm thinking it might be a good idea if I can try and get a baler ready to go a little bit faster. So then we can go around behind the combine and we can gather up that straw a little bit quicker. And then I'm thinking that I won't do autumn planting. I'll do spring planting. So through the autumn and the winter, we're going to go through pretty quickly. I won't do much in the way of trees on this map. We will sort of scurry along as quickly as we can, get things done. As a few people did say previously that you wanted me to get rid of that island of trees over there in that field. But an equal number of people said no, we shouldn't. So we probably won't get rid of the island of trees over in the middle of that field. We'll leave it there, give us a bit of something to work around. Just to keep our lives at least a little bit interesting as far as doing the bigger stuff in the field. So we'll have planting in the spring. We're going to get some more things, more fields ready for the spring as well. So we will have a little bit of autumn ploughing that we'll go and do. And that's, well, autumn and part of winter that we can. Just as we get another field or two that will be ready, some of it will be done with grass, and some of it will be done with a bit more arable. And we've got a couple of arable fields, but a little bit more arable land is not going to go amiss. I think it will work out quite nicely and help us out really well. So if we can get a little bit more arable land up and running, that would be absolutely great. Most of that. And of course, once we've got the corn, once that's been harvested, we're going to be wanting pigs. So we'll be able to move on to getting the pigs pretty quickly as well. I have had some people expressing concern that we're not going to be able to get through the seasons fast enough, that we're only going to be able to do maybe a couple of years. I'm hoping, because we did spend a bit of time doing the ploughing originally, and I am hoping that we'll be able to do a bit more work a bit more quickly with ploughing and stuff like that, so that we can just speed things along a little bit, and we'll start being able to get through the seasons a bit faster. This is one of the reasons why I really want a placeable feed mod thing, a placeable feed mixer, because that means that feeding the cows, because we're going to have to do that every other day minimum, it's going to be a lot faster if we've got something on the ground that we can make up the TMR with quicker, rather than having to do it in the mixer wagons. So that's one of the reasons that I want one of those placeable ones, so that when we're doing sort of jumping through from different harvests and that, we're not having to spend too much of our time feeding the animals and things like that, because it does take quite a while. If over time you can put in a huge amount of time to feeding the animals, it really does start to pick up and accumulate after a while. I'll run that down there. We've got a little bit there. We can leave that. We'll come back through in a minute. I'm not going to turn immediately on myself. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go up 2 like this. And that way we're not having to turn too tightly, because obviously we don't want to be turning and putting too much pressure on the PTO shaft, going from the tractor into the baler. That is the absolute last thing that we want to be doing. Bring you up there. I got one little bit there. No, we'll get that in a minute. We'll get that when we come back down the next one. It's whether or not I'm going to get those 4 little spots of hay in a single pass. I don't know. I think going that's not going to do it. We get... Okay, I was going to say we get 3 of them, but we didn't even do that. So we'll back up here. Fortunately, we've got a camera on top of the baler. A lot of balers these days have that. They have a little camera on the top at the back, so that if you do need to do some reversing, you can see where you're going. Because there's nothing worse than trying to reverse a baler in a field when you're doing a whole load of baling. Because you can guarantee, no matter how vigilant you are and how aware you are of everything around you, there's gonna be a bale somewhere that you reverse into. When I used to do the baling, there was a little thing on the oil pressure. And you could watch from in cab, you had a little dial, which was there actually, look. You had a little dial, there's one right there, look. There, that shows you the oil pressure on the baler. When the bale dropped off the back of the baler, you had, for about 4 ram strokes, that oil pressure would drop right down, be quite low, just until the next bale stuck out a little bit, kind of like that. Because the bale, as soon as it sort of got out to the end, it would then drop off, and that was the bit that sort of gave the indication. So you could see it from there. So if you wanted to be able to stop and reverse at all, but you didn't have to do it immediately, that's what you would do. You would look, and you would just watch that one until you seen the oil pressure drop a little bit for a couple of ram strokes, and then you knew you could go forward a little bit, and then you could stop, and then you could reverse if you needed to. Or if you wanted to get out and you wanted to just check a bale, because every now and then you'd get out and you'd check the bales and you would just sort of see how tight they were, yank on the strings a little bit on the top, just to try and test how strong they were. And the usual thing was you would grab hold of one of the edge strings and you would lift it up. And then, depending on how high you could lift... Well, not how high you could lift it. It wasn't entirely based on how high you could lift the string. It was partly... You would lift the string up, and then you would, after lifting the string, it would... how much of the straw sort of squeezed at the end of each end of the bale. And you only wanted the straw to be able to move a certain amount when you lifted the string sort of at a set height. It was kind of... It was a bit rough and ready, but there was a reasonably good way to see if you have the right pressure on the baler and everything was how it should be. So you'd sort of tug on the strings a little bit just to make sure that everything seemed to fit. So long as it seemed to fit, so long as it seemed to be roughly in the right place, then you could carry on and you'd be absolutely fine. So if you wanted to be able to see a bale, and you wanted to check one just on the row that you were working, then you'd watch it and wait until you seen that pressure drop, and then you knew, oh, there's a bale right behind the baler, you can jump out and you can go and take a look. If you didn't do that, you could have a little bit of a walk to go back to the last bale. So you would do that just to sort of make sure. So that was how I used to find out if there was a bale behind me, was keeping an eye on that little oil pressure meter. These days, most of these balers, not all of them, definitely not all of them, I'm not saying all of them, I'm not giving a blanket say, yes, this definitely happens, but a lot of these balers now have a small camera on the back. Some of them have 2 cameras, so that, you know, because they do get really dusty in this, when this sort of stuff is going on. Some of them have cameras all over the place. They have cameras over the knotters, and they have cameras at various important parts of the baler, so that you can keep an eye on everything that's going on from within the cab. And it makes it a lot easier. You know, you just look in the camera, you can see what's going on behind you, you can see what's going on under you, you can see what's going on in front of you, without actually even having to look in front of you. It's quite amazing. It is quite wonderful. One of the big problems I had with the old balers that I used was, you see there's a cover right there, that's over where the knotting mechanism is on the baler. Steady. And that knotting mechanism would get absolutely choked up with dust, because what happens is the ram, you've got this massive, great big... Let's go and have a look and see if we can actually see the ram moving in here. Does it move? Yeah, there we go. Look, see, this ram's moving in and out. See that? You've got this massive, great big thing thumping in and out. The straw comes up. You don't see the straw, but you can see Oops, I can't see it very well. You can see at the bottom, just as the ram goes right back towards the tractor, then there's a little, those teeth come up. You can see those teeth coming up there? Each time they do, that chamber underneath, we'll drop down here a minute and we'll just zoom in a little bit. Right, this chamber in here, that is stuffed full of straw. All the straw gets picked up by that front reel down there, and then it fills up this little bit in here, this little chamber. It's sort of curved chamber. And then that then goes up here, and it shoves up a slice of straw. You get this big big cake of straw that comes up, and then that ram takes that cake of straw and shoves it back into the existing bale, which I'm currently got my camera stuck right inside. And that's how it's made. Now, each time that ram goes through, obviously, it's squashing out all the air. Now, that air, it puffs out and it takes out a little bit of dust and a few other little bits and pieces with it. That goes up around the knotters, because those knotters are directly above the top edge of the bale right there. So all of that dust and everything gets blasted straight up onto the knotters. Now, the old one that I used to use didn't have a cover over it, didn't have anything else at all. So the knotters would get completely covered in mountains of dust, right? And that was one of the faults with the old balers. And then what would happen is, after every 30 minutes or so, you'd have to stop, you'd have to get out, you just check the bales was alright, but that wasn't the important bit. You'd have to stop, get out, climb up on top, and clear all of the dust away around those knotters. And you'd do this every 30 minutes. If you didn't, you'd get so much dust and rubbish up there that it would gather up around the knotters, and you'd be getting large quantities of fine straw getting caught up in the actual knot, which inevitably would lead to the knot slipping undone, and then the bale would only have 5 or 4 strings or something like that, and that's no good. You don't want that. You don't want the bales losing strings, especially the outside strings, which is the knotters that used to do the worst was always the outside ones, just the way that the stuff would accumulate. So you didn't want that, so every 30 minutes you had to go and clean these things off. Well, then Claas actually went round and they retrofitted these fan systems onto all of their old balers. If you had an old baler, they would come around and do it, and they did it for a very reduced price because this was such a major problem. So you get retrofitted this little fan kit, and they would come around and do it, or you could just order the fan kit and do it yourself if you wanted to. I don't know about costs. I don't know what that cost. That worked reasonably well. It was definitely better, but you still had to go up. It wasn't brilliant, right? It definitely wasn't brilliant. You still had a lot of problems. You still had a lot of issues with stuff accumulating. It wasn't quite as bad, but these fans weren't great. And they were only blowing in one direction. They were only... Did you see that? That bale dropped off at exactly the wrong point right there. That's not very helpful at all. We will just shunt that bale out of the way a minute, as we're over here. There. And when we come back through, it won't be in the way of us. So yeah, those fans weren't the best ones. And they did do better. You only had to go out and clear it off every hour instead of every half hour. So it was definitely an improvement. But because of just the way they were set up, they weren't that great. And then Claas tried a couple of different methods, and some of the fans that they came out with were atrocious. They started off really well, but they would accumulate rubbish behind them, and then they wouldn't work very efficiently. And because of the angles that some of them blew at, it generally wasn't quite so good. Eventually, they came up with an entirely different system. They got rid of the fans altogether, and they had this new system where it... Well, that's about all we've got time for in today's episode, so we're going to go and take a little bit of a break. We need to chill out on the beach, relax, and build up some strength. So while we're doing that, if you've enjoyed the episode, then could you please head down below and give us a like? And if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to come and watch as well. That would be awesome. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.